Most people think they know this rifle. The real story involves bureaucratic betrayal, a July 4th barbecue that changed military history, soldiers who died because someone swapped the gunpowder to save money, and a maintenance manual written as a pin-up comic book. 7 verified facts that will rewire how you see the most influential rifle of the last century. And it starts with the unlikely man who designed it. Number 1 begins with Eugene Stoner, a figure whose path to firearms design was anything but ordinary. Born on November 22, 1922, in Gosport, Indiana, Stoner's early life was defined by the Great Depression. Forced to leave college, he took a job as a machinist in the aircraft industry, a field that would shape his engineering instincts. During World War II, Stoner served as a Marine Corps armorer in the South Pacific, maintaining machine guns for aviation units under relentless combat conditions. These years gave him a front-row seat to the realities of weapon reliability and failure. After the war, he returned to California's booming aviation sector before joining Armalite, a tiny research division of Fairchild. Largely self-taught, Stoner rose to chief engineer and designed the AR-10 and the smaller AR-15, laying the foundation for the M16. His story is not one of military hierarchy, but of an outsider whose blend of aerospace know-how and battlefield pragmatism would disrupt the world of infantry weapons. Number 2 on our list, the sale of the AR-15 to Colt, reads less like the birth of a military legend and more like a footnote in corporate accounting. In February 1959, Fairchild, through its Armalite division, handed over every patent, trademark, and production right for both the AR-10 and AR-15 to Colt's manufacturing company. The price, just $75,000 in cash, plus a promise of future royalties. The deal, brokered by the law firm Cooper McDonald and finalized that December, marked a quiet but decisive turning point. Colt wasted no time, launching the AR-15 Model 601 for both military and civilian markets. What stands out is the sheer modesty of the transaction. A handful of signatures and a check, long before the rifle's name would echo through jungles and headlines. The fate of a weapon that would shape decades of conflict was decided in a boardroom, measured not in lives or strategy, but in dollars and legal paperwork. Number 3 on our list, the story takes a surreal turn at a Maryland farm on July 4, 1960. While most Americans were celebrating Independence Day, Air Force General Curtis LeMay was handed a Colt AR-15 and invited to fire at watermelons lined up in the grass. The demonstration, hosted by Armalite President Dick Boutelle, was no ordinary backyard show. LeMay squeezed off rounds, watching the bullets tear through fruit with barely any recoil and remarkable precision. Those watermelons became the proving ground for a weapon that would soon change American military doctrine. Reportedly, LeMay was so impressed that he issued a verbal order for the rifle on the spot. The very AR-15 used in the demo, serial number 000106, would later fetch over $100,000 at auction, a testament to the moment's significance. But the aftermath is where the cracks in the system appear. LeMay, now convinced, sought to arm the Air Force with 80,000 rifles, only to face a wall of resistance from military leadership. The reason? The logistical headache of supplying both 7.62 millimeter and 5.56 millimeter ammunition. Official records leave the details hazy, but the episode stands as a vivid example of how bureaucratic inertia can stall innovation, even when the case seems clear on the firing line. Number 4 on our list, the letters home from Vietnam reveal the M16's crisis in the most human terms. As the rifle's reputation for jamming spread through the ranks, desperate soldiers turned to their families for help. One Marine's request stands out: a plea for a 1¼ inch paintbrush and a bore rod, not for comfort, but simply to keep his issued rifle firing. These weren't isolated complaints. Letters describing chronic stoppages flooded back to the United States, and families, alarmed by the stories of malfunctioning weapons, forwarded them to Congress. The outcry forced the House Armed Services Committee to launch a formal investigation in 1967. When the committee surveyed 1,585 troops, the results were damning. Nearly 80% reported weapon stoppages. These numbers stripped away any illusion that the problem was rare or exaggerated. The testimony from the front lines, soldiers improvising maintenance tools just to survive, became undeniable evidence that the M16's failures were costing lives, not just causing frustration. Number 5 on our list, a single battlefield death captured the entire tragedy of the M16's Vietnam debut. During a fierce firefight, a Marine rifleman's weapon jammed. He was the only member of his squad carrying a cleaning rod, the one tool that could have cleared the obstruction. Without it, the rifle was useless and the Marine was left exposed. He was killed before he could get his weapon back in action. This incident, recorded in a congressional investigation from the 1970s, stands as a stark indictment of the system that sent troops to war without basic maintenance gear. Army Manual FM 23-9 had insisted that occasional cleaning would keep the weapon functioning indefinitely, yet cleaning kits were not issued to infantry units during the early deployment. The details of the Marine's death remain only partially verified, but the larger truth is undeniable. A rifle engineered for innovation became a liability through bureaucratic neglect. The cost of that neglect was measured in lives, not just statistics. Number 6 on our list, the ICORD Subcommittee's report marked the moment when the M16 crisis moved from rumor and battlefield complaint to formal condemnation by the highest levels of government. In 1967, the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Investigations, chaired by Senator Frank ICORD, released a 51-page report after months of hearings and testimony. The language was unflinching. The committee described the Pentagon's handling of the rifle as bordering on criminal negligence. For the first time, official Washington acknowledged that the failures of the M16 weren't just technical glitches. They were the result of decisions and omissions by those in charge of procurement and oversight. The report cataloged the Army's failure to provide cleaning kits, the disastrous ammunition switch, and the lack of adequate training, painting a picture of systemic neglect that had cost American lives in Vietnam. Yet, even as the evidence mounted and the language sharpened, accountability proved elusive. No senior official was court-martialed, dismissed, or criminally charged. The rifle's malfunction had become a national scandal, but the system that produced it remained untouched. And finally, in first place, the secret ammunition switch that turned the M16 from a technical marvel into a battlefield liability. The rifle's original design depended on a specific recipe: 5.56mm cartridges loaded with DuPont's IMR 44475 powder, a slow-burning propellant that produced consistent pressures and left minimal residue. But in 1964, a quiet decision inside Army procurement changed everything. Without consulting Eugene Stoner or Colt, the Army substituted a different powder, the 846 ball propellant, chosen for its availability and cost rather than its compatibility with the weapon. The new powder burned hotter, spiked chamber pressures, and left behind sticky deposits that clogged the rifle's gas system. Colt's own 1965 test data revealed the consequences. Roughly half of all rifles malfunctioned when firing ammunition loaded with the Army's new powder. Yet the Army dismissed these warnings, pressing forward with mass deployment. On the ground in Vietnam, the results were catastrophic. Rifles jammed at the worst possible moments, extraction failures multiplied, and soldiers paid the price. This single act, changing the ammunition's chemistry without regard for the rifle's engineering, linked technical shortcut to bureaucratic arrogance and, ultimately, to human tragedy. More than any other fact, the ammunition switch exposes the core betrayal at the heart of the M16's Vietnam story. Decisions made in offices, far from the jungle, that left soldiers to fight and die with weapons compromised by someone else's cost calculation. Across these 7 facts, one pattern stands out. When innovation meets bureaucracy, the cost is paid in lives, not just dollars. The M16's history exposes what happens when distant decisions decide battlefield fate. This isn't just a rifle story, it's a warning. Subscribe for more untold truths.